All right, hi, I'm Elias. I'm going to show you how to set up the first CRM that coaches you through the sales process, Theta Coach CRM. You're going to go to thetacoach.biz/CRM and you're going to choose this option over here, which is the detailed setup guide. And we're going to build your CRM. To make this happen, you need to have a Superbase account and you need to set up a Theta CRM table. And just get the keys into it from here. The keys and the URL. They're just easy to get like this. That was the RLS key, the first one, which is going to be used by our servers, and the second one is the one that's going to be used on your computer, which is more secure, as in the most sensitive key. To run this, you're going to need to install Node and NPM, which sounds very developer-like. They're easy to install. They are typically thought of as developer tools, but what they let you do is let you run a chatbot on your computer, which means that you have access to the best tools, basically, and they can work locally and connect to stuff, which is going to be very useful here. So once you've installed Claude, you go here and you write Claude in your terminal, and you just copy this prompt right in there. It's going to need 2 times to copy this prompt in. So the first time is going to set it up, then you close out Claude, and then you do it again. And that will install what's called an MCP server, which gives the AI the tools it needs to connect to stuff, to do specialized tasks, to understand what documents you have in that folder in order to, for your products, for example. And then it's going to create these cards for the CRM, whether it's a CRM or not, you tell me. It's a challenger sales specialized persuasion tool. You can use them for events, you can use them for people, you can as leads, you can use them for products, you can use them for all kinds of things. And yeah, they work very well. What it's going to do is going to create a list of texts and checkboxes in order for the stages you need to get through, and you have the ability to practice with a real AI that will call your phone, basically. And that has been a fantastic way to prepare and to understand what you might be missing. A lot of times you think something is minor, and then while you speak it out, if you're a verbal person, most salespeople are, then you would simply get to the finish line faster this way. So the first finish properly here inside, and I'm going to run Claude again and copy it in again. You're going to see a lot of those permissions because we're using some very powerful tools. One of the tools that this is bundled with is Claude Flow, which lets you spin up as many agents as you want. So you can give them each a task, or you can tell Claude to give them each a task. For example, create leads from all the people in this spreadsheet, for example. You just paste in the whole thing. And it will literally create one of these cards per each of these and figuring out what might be special about selling this product to this person, for example. Really interesting way to do that is to copy paste someone's LinkedIn page. That gives lots of interesting information for how to make that happen. There we go. Looks like it worked great here. Let's I've already opened a few here, so let's start with number 1. Open lead card 1, and it's going to open it in the browser here in a second. It's going to be faster than this typically, but it's just been set up in this folder. I'm guessing that's what's happening. Otherwise, you can just copy paste this. That would work too, but I don't want to do that for the video. seems to have gotten stuck, which is very odd. It kind of forgot itself. There's actually a reminder prompt in the app if things like that happen. So you can say bash open it. Bash is the command line, right? So if I tell bash open it, would just open it instead of a file. Then it will open it in the browser, and it will ask permission, and then it opens over here. So here's this lead, and these are the parts of the Challenger journey. And if you want to practice, what you would do is that you would start a call. It was going to call my phone, and then I'm going to simply, oh, that was on not disturb, anticlimactic. If I hit call, it's going to call my phone, and then I will hit call mode over here. There we go.
Lima from University of Texas at Austin, Neuroscience. I saw your information about your product or service and wanted to learn more.
Awesome. How can I help you?
Well, I have to be honest. I'm skeptical, and I've spent 40 years working on brain metabolic mapping and neuroimaging, trying to ground semantic meaning in physical measurements. The translation layer between what we measure and what it means has been the frustration of my career. What exactly are you proposing that's different?
Oh, I love this question. We have a whole new kind of math, basically, that, put simply, I think we solved the grounding problem. So symbols can be grounded in physical reality now, which is the first time I've ever heard anyone say that out loud.
I've spent decades trying to crack this problem, and I'm not convinced it's solvable. What makes you think you've succeeded where others, including myself, have failed?
Simply put, I threw out 50 years of computer science, including Codd's separation principle. And what I did was, I guess I was inspired by the fact that neurons that fire together wire together. But I took it from a very different direction. So where Codd separates logical and physical, I reintegrate them with a kind of a semantic net. So the only thing you have to really believe to go along with the way I do this is that a sorted list is easier to deal with than a random one, and from there comes a few consequences of the algorithm we use that creates a net of independent variables that covers the problem space you're dealing with, and because they are spatially mapped and independent and cover as much of the problem space as possible, you can get something that's called meaningful position instead of the meaningful proximity that you get from vector databases. Does that make any sense?
Meaningful position versus meaningful proximity. I think I understand what you're getting at. You're suggesting that your approach can provide a more precise positional understanding of the relationships between variables rather than just their proximity to each other. But how does this actually address the grounding problem in a way that's relevant to my work in neuroscience?
Okay, well, let's stick with the first point for a second, because it is the answer to the next point. The difference between meaningful proximity and meaningful position, they're not a difference in amount, they're actually a difference in kind. It's a completely different type of thing when you have position versus proximity. They're not the same at all. So that's the short answer to your question. The long answer is it creates sort of a QWERTY keyboard for cognition where the spatial layout can be associated with the semantic meaning. It's not that it can decode the information. It's that we can cover all the associations we need to be relatively confident that we have the full keyboard, so to speak.
A query keyboard for cognition, that's an interesting concept. You're saying that the spatial layout of this keyboard can be associated with semantic meaning, allowing you to cover all the necessary associations to be confident in your results. But how does this translate to actual cognitive functions, like learning and memory, which are my area of expertise?
Oh, I'd love to know more about that. My background is not neuroscience. I studied some engineering and cognitive science, but this is largely a decades-long project of mine, and I can't tell you perhaps in words that speak directly to your expertise. However, I'm not promising to be able to decode data. I'm promising to create a semantic map that can be associated to effectively to what's actually going on. So you might be able to map out meaning, but it's more of an associative process. It's the ability to cover all your functions basically, and the brain would, in theory, then be able to learn how to push all those buttons just as easily as you're reading.
So you're not directly decoding neural data, but creating a semantic map that can be associated with brain activity. That's an interesting distinction. But if I understand you correctly, the brain would still need to learn how to use this keyboard of yours. How does this help me in my research on neurocognitive enhancement? Particularly with my work on transcranial infrared laser stimulation, I need something that can give me a more direct read on cognitive function, not just an associated map that requires additional learning.
Well, actually, I think that you're already trying my way, and you're finding it difficult because you are still mapping the read to the cognitive state, for example. So if the cognitive state can be represented on the map, you have a much better understanding of what a hit or a near miss looks like in your data. So it doesn't decode it without the stimulus, if I understand it correctly.
So you're saying that with your map, I could better interpret the results of my transcranial infrared laser stimulation experiments, understanding what constitutes a successful or unsuccessful stimulation and how it relates to the underlying cognitive state. But it still requires the stimulus, the actual laser stimulation, to generate the data that your map can then help interpret.
I think that the real promise of it would be the cognitive symbol. Basically, if you can associate the thought, idea, or whatever you're mapping to the state and map it onto my map, then that would mean that you can also understand its neighborhood, its proximity, and it creates a meaningful position that you can then access through a BCI, for example.
So you're suggesting that this meaningful position could be directly accessed through a brain-computer interface. That's a bold claim. How would that work exactly? And more importantly, what kind of validation do you have for this? I need to see some evidence that this isn't just theoretical.
I have technical validation from your friend and old colleague, Benito. And also, let me ask you this. Where does a smile exist on a face?
A smile exists not just in the physical movement of the muscles, but in the pattern of brain activity associated with it. But what does this have to do with your technology? And who is Demito? And what kind of technical validation are you talking about?
He's an old colleague of yours. I'll forward you the information. But it's actually a very meaningful problem for what we're trying to do here. The real question about
I think there
smile,
may be some.
I can get you technical validation. That's not a concern. This has very far-reaching consequences. The question about the smile on the face is meaning that it doesn't live in just one place. We interpret it as a symbol, but it is a distributed pattern across the face, right? And that's exactly the same kind of complexity issue that you are dealing with. So we would be able to do that for brain activity instead of just a smile. So both of them would be symbols that have a meaningful position on the map. So you could find the thing, you could categorize and keep the things that are similar in similar situations on a map, for example. So you would know what does this smile look like in one context versus another context. There are lots of different kinds of smiles, and that's just a row, reading a row spatially in the matrix, for example.
Okay, so you're saying your framework can map these complex distributed patterns like a smile, or more importantly, brain activity, and assign them a specific meaningful position. This would allow for categorization and comparison across different contexts. But I'm still not seeing how this is fundamentally different from other multivariate analysis techniques I've used.
I can explain
what
that.
What makes your approach unique?
Powerful
for neuro?
I can explain
Can
why
you
it's...
give me a concrete...
Yep. I can explain why it's unique and powerful. Concretely, because we have meaningful position, that means you're actually reading your data in the same way that we are reading a smile. It's a qualitatively different type of information. It turns the shape of information into a symbol, just like reading a smile. And we have no such tools yet. We have lots of visualization tools, but we have zero ways to actually address the grounding problem.
I see what you're getting at. You're saying that current visualization tools can display complex data, but they don't truly address the grounding problem, the issue of mapping abstract concepts to concrete, meaningful representations. Your approach, on the other hand, claims to turn the shape of information into a symbol, much like reading a smile, which could potentially solve this problem. But can you demonstrate this with actual data from my field of neuroscience?
For that, we would need to discuss a pilot or some kind of co-authorship so we can apply our technology to your studies. It's not enough to just, it might not be enough, I'm not sure, to run it on your data. It would have to be a study where you couple it to stimulus in order to know how to map the symbols, basically. I'm guessing that would be the case.
And if we were to collaborate on such a study, what kind of commitment would you be looking for from me in terms of resources, data sharing, and authorship?
Well, as a co-author in a magazine or something like that, you would be the person who takes this on from a neuroscience perspective and leads that, basically, I would hope. If you ask yourself, what would it be worth to you and your career if I was right? This could be very impactful, and not just for BCIs either. This is a fundamentally different approach.
I understand the potential. A fundamentally different approach, one that could potentially upend our current understanding of brain function and cognition. I must admit, the potential implications are intriguing, but I'm a scientist, and I need to see evidence, not just promises. What's the next step to explore this idea further and determine if it's worth pursuing?
Well, I could offer you to read my white papers or to speak to Benito about how he sees the issue for computer science.
I'd like to review your white papers. So what would be the best way to get started with reviewing your white papers and discussing this further with Benito? Should I reach out to him directly, or would you facilitate an introduction?
I'll reacquaint you for sure, and let's set up a meeting for next week, hoping that you have had time to skim through the white papers.
That sounds reasonable. Well, I'll make sure to review the white papers before our meeting next week. What specific day and time were you thinking?
How about Monday afternoon?
Monday afternoon works for me. Shall we say 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time?
Yes, that would be perfect.
Excellent. I'll look forward to our meeting on Monday at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Please send over the white papers and make the introduction to Benito before then. I'll review everything carefully and we can discuss the potential for a pilot study. Thank you for your time today.
All right. Outstanding. Appreciate that.
All right, then. Have a good day.
You too. Bye. All right, so I actually didn't do that right. I got caught up, which is exactly what the Challenger method is trying to avoid with this screen you're seeing here with the checklists. So challenges are all about keeping control of the conversation and making sure you don't go through the steps without covering them all. And because the AI has access to the same challenge, like it is running based on all the things you see on the screen here, that means that he actually went through the Challenger method as a customer because he got interested and he went through, so what first he discovered, then he did the rational and then the emotional, etc. Right? So he was quite able to go forward and asking the questions. So I didn't actually have to push him on that much on that. So you can do better than this, and it's set up to do very clear and straightforward bullet points that are supposed to be with a little bit of rehearsal ahead of time and checking them off. You should be able to see the ones that they're there, if you need something to check off during the conversation. We're not trying to do it dynamically, at least not yet, and the reason for that is authenticity mainly. It's largely because you want to own it. You don't want to be fed lines. So this is a way to practice ahead of time and get comfortable that you understand the prospect's situation and what their concerns are. And sometimes it actually is really helpful. The AI really, reprioritizes what you thought was important in a particular situation. So yeah, that was a quick primer for that. And I hope you try it out. We have a fantastic affiliate program in the works where the $1 sign up that is there right now, that's for what you're seeing now, basically, right? So with maintenance and support, or with a more serious engagement, you would pay more. So right now the middle tier is $497, and the maintenance and support one, if you're a small business and this is mission critical, it has to work for you, then that's $2,500, and we'll offer support basically, and we will make sure that you know what you can do with it and how to take it from there, right? Especially useful if you're not, if you want to stay on top of how to use AI as well as possible in your business. The affiliate program works like so that if you have someone who's if you want to sell this, you can sell it at a commission and you get the affiliate residuals as long as the people you close stay customers, basically. So if they need support, it's in your interest to help them out. And that's not a new model, but it seems to be perfect for this. Sellers selling sales tools to salespeople. And you got to hear a bit about me talking about what the Fractal Identity Map does, and that will be a product that we will, in different ways, sell through this platform. So we actually need this kind of highly specialized CRM in order to manage those relationships and to sell that, because it's such a new technology and it has such a huge implication that we'll need affiliates, we'll need salespeople, we'll need ways to manage those relationships and those pilots, because it's actually about detecting drift in AI systems. That's what this technology enables. And the CRM doesn't use it outright right now, but we will use this platform to attach those products to understand drift in AIs and understand drift in organizations and understand drift in your code. So Intent Guard is live right now as an open source project, and it analyzes your documentation and your code and whether there's misalignments between them. Like if you have code documentations for things you don't have code for, or code that is not documented, it can find that and give you a grade. But more than just a grade, it gives you where the cold spots are on the map, basically. And just like reading a smile, you'll get very quickly proficient in understanding where where you need to focus your energy, basically. And it's a mini version of how to deal with the complexity of herding cats for AIs and for any complex situation, basically, AIs, companies, whatever. So I hope you try it out, and the $1 pricing is still up, last I checked. But if you believe that this is worthwhile, I would highly hope that you buy one of our more expensive tiers. In the beginning, obviously, I'll be available to support you and get this running. Yeah, check it out. It's at thetacoach.biz/CRM.